Did you know that your business has its own unique business voice? Well, I'm sure you didn't. You probably don't even think about your unique voice. We have an inner voice, we have a business voice, and we have a legacy voice. So I am so excited to have our guest on today because he is one of my favorite people, of course, in the podcasting community, but also he has been using his voice for at least the past 20 plus years as a podcaster and in this industry. So today, our amazing guest is Marc Ronick. Welcome to the show, Marc.
Thank you, Shay. I hate to do this to you, but I have to turn. I know you're here to interview me, and I have to turn it around because you really caught my interest with those three different voices.
Yeah.
And if it's cool with you, I would love to hear just briefly, especially about that legacy voice, what you mean
Mm.
by that.
Yeah. So our inner voice is the voice that we listen to, whether it
Sometimes we shouldn't.
right, whether it hurts us or helps us, right? It
Yeah,
might
yeah.
propel us forward or it might hold us back. Our business voice is, really about what our brand is and
Mhm.
how we're using our voice. Are we asking? Are we making the ask for the clients, for the customers? And then legacy voice is really something I'm really leaning into recently. So I'm so glad you asked this question.
Mm,
So we just, as podcasters, we just dive in with the hard stuff, right?
yeah.
I've noticed that when I work with my own clients that are one-on-one or they have a business and I'm podcasting, the host for their show, that there's this key component of their voice as a legacy that we're forgetting. So
Mm,
think about it as from the point of if you have children or family members or loved ones in general that want to, after you're gone, want to hear you, right?
mhm,
That is like, oh, I wish I had, my dad is gone. Both my parents are gone. I wish I had been a podcaster when they were alive and recorded all of their things.
mm.
And everything that we learn is knowledge. And it's not until we share it that it becomes wisdom, and our wisdom is our legacy. So just by being able to, as a business, sharing all the wisdom that you have learned, what makes you unique, that's part of the legacy voice as well.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. I love that. And it's funny because I was just thinking the other day about the fact that I don't have a lot of recorded conversations with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I have a few things from when I was a little kid that my parents have recorded, just like when I was playing with them and things like that.
Yeah.
And I really want to get back to that. So I'm glad you said that. I think it's so important because the other thing I think about as a podcaster is how much of a legacy in your definition that I've left. My
Yeah.
daughter can go back and really, because my longtime podcast that I'm not doing currently, that was me being 100% me, right?
Yeah.
Like I was not ashamed to share the embarrassing moments of my
Mm.
life, the lovely moments of my life, but I shared it all and she'll have that. Right. I
Yes.
used to be worried, oh my God, she's going to hear what I said but now I'm thinking about it. And when I'm long gone, that she will cherish that
Right.
stuff. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you for saying that.
Of course. And
Yeah.
I, anyone who is listening to this, I highly recommend, even if you're not a podcaster, record your parents, record your
Hmm.
loved ones, whatever, maybe they're grandparents, maybe they're a favorite, aunt and uncle, or just a favorite family friend. Record them, tape them, let that's their actual voice, but their presence. When
Yeah.
they're gone, you are going to like look back on that with such fond memories. I grew up in the VCR tape days and the big camcorders, and that we didn't have. We
Right.
didn't have any of those. So I don't have
Nope.
video of me. I know so many parents, especially nowadays with young kids, they have a video for every day almost, the
Right.
kids doing something.
Yeah.
But you probably don't have that of your parents.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
really true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we have later days, thankfully, of videos, and my parents with my daughter and that kind of thing. But yeah, I really want to get some of that old stuff. I wish I could have gotten that, but here we are. So I do. My plan is to sit down with my parents and do a little interview, kind of what you're talking about, and hold on to that and do some stuff with that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I wanted to answer your question around this unique business voice stuff.
Well,
So,
let me before you do that, let me read your bio because I
oh,
feel like
please.
we are such good podcasters. We jump right in, and I
We
want
do.
to let people know who you are. So, with a career of spanning almost 20 years in podcasting, or at least that's as many as he can look back and see the
Yes.
recordings, Marc Ronick has become a symbol of innovation and empowerment. As the founder of iRonick Media and co founder of NextGen Podcaster, he has pioneered new ways of producing, branding, and leveraging AI in podcasting. He hosts a live streaming morning show called the Podcasting Morning Chat every Monday to Friday, every single day, creating a dynamic platform for podcasters to engage in a range of topics from personal development to technical insights. And you can find more on his website at ironicmedia.com. So, Marc, let me rephrase the question and put it to you a different way.
Sure.
So, what does using your business voice mean to you?
Full disclosure to your audience, you didn't reveal that question to me until right before we hit record.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that comes to mind for me is your unique business voice, in my opinion, is your voice,
Mm,
right? I see too many podcasters, too many YouTubers that are taking advantage of that medium to boost their business, to build a brand, etc. And they're often stuck in this way that they feel like they have to present themselves in a very specific way, the quote
mm,
unquote professional
mm,
way, right? And I'm not saying that's a wrong way. I'm saying that if you can be yourself, if you are willing and open to sharing personal experiences, sharing your challenges that you're going through, admittedly, sometimes I still struggle with sharing my challenges because I feel like I'm supposed to be in a certain light for my audience or my
mm,
community. And I'm working on that. But I think I do a decent job, but I think I see too many people that aren't trying to
mm,
show who they are and through their voice. And I think it's the biggest mistake, really,
mm,
because people want, when they're listening to a podcast, when they're watching that YouTube video, yeah, they want the information. And that information is the anchor, really, to your show.
mhm.
But they want to also be able to relate to you.
Yeah.
And they want to know, like, they don't want to sit there like they're in a class.
Mhm,
Right? We've most of us been there, done that. We're done with sitting in a classroom style format. So instead, we want to learn through story. We want to learn through personality.
mhm,
And I wish that more podcasters embraced that idea and ripped the band-aid
mm,
and found that courage to just be who they are. So that's, to me, your unique business voice is your unique voice,
mm.
period.
I love that. I love what you said. And I'll tell you, the reason that I don't tell my guests what I'm going to ask is because I have found that there's this, just exactly what you said, there's this authenticity
Mm-hmm.
that's unperfect that might be stuttered through or stumbled through, and it might be processed out loud, but there's a gift of wisdom in that,
Yeah.
in being able to share that. And I have found of 5.5 years of doing this that when I send people, because I have some that my guests are like, please send me your questions. And I'm like, I
I
mean,
was
that's
going to do that, by the way, but I decided not
I'm so glad you didn't because
to.
I don't really know. It's changed over the years. So I used to have a list of questions in my first season. And after that, I had one question and then everything else just kind of went from there.
Mhm.
So piggyback on because I know my guests are going to say brilliant things. And Marc, you didn't disappoint. You said something brilliant. So I'm going to ask and piggyback off what you just said. So we get into this, and I'll say it's a habit and a belief that we have to be, quote unquote, a certain way to be professional.
Yeah.
So is professional and perfect different?
Wow, that's an excellent question. Thank you. I mean, my initial response is yes. They are different. And I should call out right away. I have ADHD, so sometimes I forget a question in an instant.
It's all good.
So just beware. I'll probably forget one down the road here. So professional voice, and what was the other?
So is there a difference between being professional and perfect?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a definite difference because as a professional, I think we have to accept the fact that there is no such thing as perfection,
Mm,
right? So
yeah.
the true successful people out there are ones that allow themselves to fail. And
Mm.
again, you're hitting on something that I'm working on myself right now.
Me too. That's why we're
Yeah.
talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I do find myself, even when I think I have either overcome it or made strides, there will be moments where I catch myself falling back into that habit of perfectionism.
Hmm.
And what I try to remind myself of is look at all these professionals out there in all different industries. And one of the methods I use is to go back and study those people and how they came to where they are. Right. And
Mm,
an example I just gave recently on my own show was Michael Jordan. I mean, and I know many people have probably heard this before, but first, the guy didn't even make his basketball team in high school when he first tried out,
right.
right? Failed
Yeah.
right away.
Yeah.
And then kept at it and took it on as a challenge. And I mean, we
Hmm.
all know the rest of his history, but there's other things to look at with Michael Jordan. I think that I want to say he lost at least six NBA playoff games, final playoff games. Does that make him a failure? No, right? Because he won six championships
Mm-hmm.
as well. I think what I am working on is teaching myself the idea of when I fail, that's just one step
Mm.
closer to success.
Yeah.
And even it may not even be the success I get to, may not even be what I thought it would be. I might learn after failing several times that I'm going to go on to a new path, but ultimately I have to make the mistakes in
Mm.
order to find success. So
Yeah.
there's definitely a difference there.
Well, I love what you said that you have to make mistakes. So I shifted my language from mistakes to learning experiences
Mm-hmm.
many, many years ago. And that didn't stop me from trying to be having a perfection problem, right? But I started to shift from perfectionism to progress, and everything is progressed,
Yeah,
not perfect.
right.
And I love that you mentioned
Practice
Michael.
makes progress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
practice makes progress. And I love that you mentioned Michael Jordan. And I know it's not him that said this, it was somebody before him, but he is oftentimes quoted of saying that, you have to put in the 10,000 hours to
Mm-hmm.
make, to get to the expert level.
Yeah.
And that's why he was as good as he was, because he took the 10,000 hours from even when he didn't make the team back in high school, right? He kept
Right.
going. He kept doing.
Yep.
He didn't get, I mean, he could have given up at any point and, we might not even know who he was.
That's true.
And so in any profession, but especially in this world, content creators and podcasters, how do you stay on task, motivated, inspired to continue to go after 20 something years and put in those 10,000 hours?
So for me, it was the simple answer is variety.
Mm,
I haven't been doing the same podcast for 20 years. And the longest running podcast I probably did was around 8 years. And the idea is really, if you don't want to get burnt out, it is to give yourself some variety. So
mm,
if let's say you are doing your own show and you don't have plans to quit, right? You want to keep it going, but you're getting bored, you're getting tired, you're fizzling out. There's a lot of different ways you can go with that. You can take your break. A lot of people are so
yeah.
afraid to take a break
Yes.
because they've heard the gurus
Yeah.
saying you got to stay consistent and you got to put it out every day, every week. multiple pieces of content.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a recipe for disaster. It
Mm,
really is.
me too.
I get it. I get why they say it because, well, I think some of them are just trying to create this urgency and this need for them. But I think the reason, well, they do it because you don't want to lose anybody, right? You don't want to lose your audience by taking that break. But you're going to lose your audience if you're putting out tired content all
Right.
the time.
Right.
So take a break. And I have been for the past several years now pushing podcasters to consider doing seasons. And I
Yeah,
believe you do seasons,
I do.
right? So,
For
yeah,
that reason, because I got burned
exactly.
out after the first 24 episodes. I'm like, whew, I'm just going to call it a season. Forget
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
right, right. And then the beauty of that is you can come back again with some new energy, some excitement again, because it's almost like starting over. I mean,
Mm,
if anybody listening, if you've started a podcast, you know that feeling, that rush that you get when, on launch day when
mm,
that podcast first launches. There's something
yeah.
super exciting about that, and you get to do that all over and over again with
Yep.
seasons, and that will translate to your audience. Your audience will
Mm,
pick up on that energy and they'll get more excited about it. And will you lose a couple of listeners? You might lose a few listeners just because they've moved on, they found something else to fill that void. Whatever. There are plenty more people that you can bring back into the fold. And the other thing I'll say about seasons is you can change things up a bit.
mm,
What I like about seasons is you can, one season, have a specific focus,
yes.
and then season two, go into a different area of focus.
Yes.
The big thing is really just to make sure that if you want to keep this audience intact, is to speak on topics that you know that they're interested in.
Mm,
So if you did a season one, what did you learn from it? What did your audience gravitate to? And consider those things when you're putting a new season together.
yeah.
So that's just one way to avoid that burnout, or as they call it, pod fade.
Mm, yes. And it's the seasons for me became really important, not just for my own like rest
Yeah.
and the energy to be renewed, but it also came because I wanted to switch it up. I wanted to evolve every
Yeah.
time. I did a season where I just did solo episodes, and I did a season where I did two a week, and I did it for like 62 or 64 episodes. So, I was not consistent whatsoever. And people are like, I hear some gurus going, and groaning. But when you're going through it and growing, those are things I needed to learn.
Yeah.
Right. And whether a guru told me or not, it was going to be a bad idea or not, I needed to experience that myself just to see and just to do it. And I truly loved it. It was just, I had so many people that I was interviewing that I was like, let's just get them all out twice a week because there were such great conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of podcasting, this is a conversation that I love asking podcasters too. Do you come from the place of creating a podcast because you know that there's an audience for it? Or do you come from a place of making a podcast because you love it and this is something passionate you want to talk about? Or both?
There, yeah, I think it's more both. I think it's it depends on the podcaster
Mm-hmm.
and it depends on the podcast. I have made podcasts that fit both of those two descriptions. The last podcast that I did, the Mark and Lowell show, which I think we're bringing back, and that's the one I've been referencing a few times. Yeah, that one was something we did out of a love for talk radio, really. That's
Yeah.
where it stemmed from because we used to love morning talk radio
Mm-hmm.
and we wanted to do something like that. So we did that for us and we shared our lives, like I told you earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really more for us. And the plan was, the hope was people would gravitate to it because they would feel like they're in the inside, that they're flies on the wall, that they can be a part of a conversation between friends.
Yes.
And it worked, right? But now I'm podcasting because I know there's an audience. I know there are people out there that want to learn how to podcast. And being that I've been doing this for so long and I have a passion for it also,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a kind of a combination. It's, look, I probably wouldn't be doing my daily podcasting morning chat if I didn't have a whole business around podcasting, if I wasn't interested in teaching podcasting. But I am interested in it. And I think that the combination of having the passion and having the audience sets me up for success.
Mm.
So, yeah, so I really do think it's both.
Well, I'm glad you answered that because I too believe it's both. And there's so many people that, again, quote unquote gurus who are shifting you into one direction of making sure that you have an audience for it.
Mhm.
But I don't know about you, but I have tried to do something that I wasn't passionate about and it fizzles out real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And usually doesn't get a big response either,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So that really is the key. It's you gotta love the content that you're producing. If you
Mm.
don't love it, don't expect other people to love it too, just because you're giving some valuable information, right? Like I could tell you if I hated podcasting, but I was doing content about the best podcast microphones out there, it would, people could get that anywhere.
Right.
Right. And so they're going to go to the people that are actually really interested in microphones, that
Mm.
really love microphones. And there are people out there that are obsessed over microphones.
Yes.
And those are the creators that the audiences are going to go and trust and watch over and over again. If you don't love it, again, that goes back to what we were saying before. They're going to pick up on that energy and they are going to go elsewhere in most
Mm.
cases.
Yes. And speaking of passion, and I know one of the things that you've evolved into is your empowered podcasting every day, Monday through Friday on Clubhouse. And
Yes.
that's how it
Yes.
started, right? And now it's a
Yep.
daily podcast.
Yeah, so I named that community. It's going to get confusing, and I don't want to confuse your audience, but we named that community the Empowered Podcasting Community. The name of my show is the Podcasting Morning Chat. And we've kind of separated those now a bit because now Empowered Podcasting is my conference that I'm putting together with several other professionals, and you'll be speaking at.
Yes.
And
So excited about it.
oh, I can't wait. So, yeah, so your question is really what inspired me, what got me into that? Is that?
Well, you started off as being having a conversation with other podcasters, right, on Clubhouse.
Yes.
And then how did the brilliant idea come about going, oh, I need to record this and put it out for content for other people to
Mm,
really listen to and be a part of?
yeah. I was doing the live stream for 2 years before I even made it a podcast. And it didn't feel like a brilliant idea for those first 2 years because I was convincing myself there's no way I can put this out as a podcast because
Mm,
it's designed for live streaming. It's on Clubhouse, which has its own thing to it.
right.
And I just didn't feel like it was going to work. Another example, when I start that show, I play some music, I introduce what we're going to be talking about, and then I let the music play for the next 2 minutes because I need those 2 minutes to really prep and get the last minute stuff in order to go live. And I was telling myself that alone was stopping me from putting it out there because I teach podcasters, get right to it. You don't need a big, long intro. You don't need to
Right.
play music for 2, 3 minutes. And then here I am doing it. Right. I was refusing to do it. But then it just got to the point where I felt like I need to inject myself back into the podcast process if I'm going to continue to teach other podcasters
Mm,
because I want to go through what they're going through. Yes, I've got 20 years of doing that, but over the past 2, I was only live streaming and I just felt like there was a void. I felt like I needed to be in the trenches with my community. So, and then I met a lot of people at Podfest and you and I were at Podfest and there's something clicked for me where I just felt like it was time. I wanted it out there. I wanted it to get to more people.
hmm
And Clubhouse is limited. It used to be where everybody was, but it's
Yeah.
limited now. And we still get 40, 50 people that join us live every day. But I want this to get out there to more people. I want it to help more people. I want to show people that you can put out any kind of podcast you want if there is passion and value behind it.
Mm.
So that was it for me. That was the catalyst. That was the trigger that made me say, yeah, I'm just going to put this out there. I'm going to be okay with it. I'm not going to heavily edit it. I'm just going to put it out there as is and see how people respond. And it's growing. It's not, it hasn't I started it doing this in February. I don't have hundreds of thousands of listeners, and it's growing consistently month after month. So I'm feeling like I'm doing the right thing for me, doing the right thing for my community.
I love that. I love it. And speaking of Podfest, that's where we met. Was that last year in 23, right?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, or was it May of 22? Were you?
I was there. So maybe that is where we met first, at the May 2022 event.
I think so. I think so.
But we probably connected more
Yeah,
in 23.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to bring that up because for me, going to conferences, especially podcast conferences, is where you meet and connect with other people that you probably are going to collaborate with.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm so honored that you decided to put together this empowered podcast conference, and you put a call out for speakers. And I was like, absolutely. So thank you for doing that, putting this together
You're
and
welcome.
allowing me to share my wisdom from stage. So I am so appreciative of that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you for throwing your hat in the ring and being a part of this. It means the world to me. It really does.
Because we're talking about conferences. How did you figure out, or what inspired you to really lean into, I need to continue to have another conference in the year? Because we also go to Podcast Movement as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
And so there's just the two big ones, but I know there's, meetups, and there's something about community
Mm-hmm.
that really needs to be leaned into. And even though you have a community on Clubhouse, there's something about in person that really changes things. Can you share that
Yeah.
with us?
I just had a conversation on my show about that today. Whenever I attend any in-person event for podcasting, whether it's a conference or a meetup like you're talking about, it's a big reminder to me that there is more in this world than just what we're seeing on the internet.
Hmm.
We can find all sorts of people from all over the world, and especially with algorithms, we're only seeing a piece or a portion of them, and it skews our perception. It skews what we think everybody already knows, or everybody has already seen, or what everybody's interested in. We think that, and then for me, I get stuck when I'm creating content, because I'll sit down and I'll get in my head, oh, everybody knows this already. Why am I even going to talk about this? Right? Or this isn't entertaining. The people have seen this kind of thing 100,000 times. But then when I go to these events and interact with people, I realize that there are so many more people out there that haven't seen the thing, don't know the value, haven't been entertained in that way yet. And I get this resurgence of passion and excitement about what I'm doing. And not to mention, it's just nice to be in a room physically with other people and connect with them on that level, rather than constantly through a camera and a computer screen.
Right.
So that in itself has so much value to me. And as far as why did I want to start another conference, I think I have the utmost respect for like what Chris is doing over at Podfest and what they're doing at Podcast Movement. And I saw things that I would like to see. Well, I actually didn't see things that I would like to see done at these other conferences. And I also am the kind of person that, if I feel like I'm struggling to find my way or find my place within somebody else's community, like a Podfest, and yeah, I did feel that at times where I just didn't feel like I was really in with the crowd, you know what I mean? And I've made lots of amazing connections there too. So don't get me wrong. But I just, when I start to feel like I'm resisting something, I often resort to, well, then I'm just going to do my own thing and start my own thing and do it the
Mm,
way I want to do it and attract the people that want it that way too. So that's really the catalyst. It's finding opportunity in an event that others aren't taking advantage of. And it's build it myself. Don't worry, if I can't quite find my way at another event, make my own. And
there
that's
you
what I
go.
did.
Awesome. And tell us, when is it?
It is the weekend of June 28th in Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, we picked Charlotte mainly because we ended up having a connection there. I have a committee that we've put together that are really, if I didn't have them, we wouldn't be doing empowered podcasting. One of them, Simona Constantini, she had this interview with somebody who's in Charlotte, who's a big marketing person, the president of the American Marketing Association chapter there. And she had some synergy with her and she introduced me to her, and the rest was history. We wanted somebody in the city that we were going to have an event like this,
Mm,
and it just ended up being a perfect fit. So that's why we chose Charlotte.
awesome. Say the dates again.
June 28th through the 30th.
And how can people get tickets?
They can go to empoweredpodcasting.com and they can purchase the tickets there. They can also book their hotel there, which we got a discounted rate with that hotel as well. So yeah, empoweredpodcasting.com.
Nice. So what are you going to cover there?
We're covering everything. The idea of this conference is to really cater to the independent podcaster. We recognize as independent podcasters that there's a lot of competition out there and a lot of big names that are competing for the podcast audience space. So we wanted to try to put together something that really helps lift those independent podcasters up, give them the resources, the value, the information they need to empower them to get out there, make that podcast the way they want to make it, and to be able to compete with the big guns.
Mm,
So that's what we did. And you and 25, 30 others are coming to this event to share their experience, share their knowledge and their areas of expertise. And I think that's what it's all about. I learn the best when I am with others who have been there, done that. I don't have to sit and just stare at on a computer screen and just try to take it all in. I want to be able to interact with them, speak
mm,
with them, and ask questions on the spot
mm.
when those questions come up. So that's why we did it.
I love it. I love it. And I am going to be speaking on the art of the interview,
Love it.
and on how to really build rapport and, get the conversation going. Because when I first started, I started with my cell phone on recording on a laptop in my closet
Mm-hmm.
and just bombarding my guests with questions. And that's
Yep.
one way of doing things,
Sure.
right? But there's so much more. And so is this also for someone who is thinking about starting a podcast and hasn't done it yet? Is this
Oh yeah.
a good conference for them too, the
Yeah.
newbie?
Every level, really. We really try to make sure that, we've got 3 different tracks, right? So there'll be tracks that beginners will be interested in. There'll be tracks that the intermediate and the advanced podcasters will be interested in. So yeah, it was really important to me to make sure that the education could appeal to any level of podcaster.
Love it. Love it. So we just have a few more questions to go. Oh my
Sure.
gosh, time has flown by, and clearly we
Yeah,
gotta we could talk forever, Mark.
we
So this is
can.
great. Speaking of legacy, what do you want to be remembered for?
Mm, man, I'm still trying to figure out the answer to that question. I think ultimately, if I had to simplify it, it would be that I was, I'm the kind of person that's always there for others. I
Mm,
get lit up when I know that I've made some kind of impact on someone's life. I don't care if it's a humongous impact or just a minor one. If I can create a light bulb moment for somebody, my work is done. My cup is full.
mm,
So that's really what it's all about to me. If people will remember me as that guy was so helpful and would always take a minute to stop and focus on me and help me when I was struggling through something. That's the kind of legacy I want to leave.
Well, just from knowing you, the little bit, a couple years that I've known you, you are living that right now. You are the epitome of helping others.
Oh,
So,
thanks.
yeah.
I appreciate that.
And please share the podcast conference again, the website, and how people can connect with you, your social media, your
Sure.
own website, all of those things.
Yeah. So my main website, my podcast production and consulting agency, that's iRonick Media, which you shared earlier, and iRonickmedia.com. And then there's empoweredpodcasting.com. That's the conference. I guess for social media, you can either find me on pretty much all platforms, either at Marc Ronick, my full name, just all one word, or iRonick Media.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you, Marc, for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule and just being a guiding light of an example of following your intuition and saying, you know what, I need to do this and I'm going to do it.
Thank you for saying that. You're welcome. And yeah, it's been great talking to you. I wish we could do this all the time, Shay.
Well, maybe the Marc and Shay show. You never
There you
know.
go. I'll take it. I'll take it. I set a goal for myself to have 3 podcasts this year, Shay.
Oh,
So,
well, I'm open. I love it. And one more question before you go.
yeah,
I always like to end with this question is what phrase, scripture, or mantra are you living by right now?
I'll tell you the one that I often live by. And it came to me while we were chatting. This is a quote that I learned, and I'll have to look it up because I forget who said it.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned this in high school, but from my English teacher. And it's, let's see, it's try again, fail better. Right. So basically encouraging, yes, you're going to make mistakes. You got to keep going, keep trying. And if you fail, just fail better the next time.
I love it. Fail better.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know I'm going to learn how to fail better. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for listening or watching the Shay Sparks Show. You can find us on all podcast platforms, Apple, YouTube, and Spotify. So feel free to go over to my website at theshaysparkshow.com. Let me know what your biggest takeaway is from this, and I will play it on the air. There's even a place to leave a voicemail. Would love to hear from you. And you can tell we are just fired up here at the Shay Sparks Show and everything that I'm doing. And this is season 11. So there is lots of evolutions, lots of change, lots of growth going on. So I hope you are inspired and empowered to take fearless action. So until next time, let's get fired up.